overcome fear, doubt, and barriers. Please help us welcome first Miss Octavia Goredema. Give us some love, give us some love.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for everyone that helped with the technical difficulties. I really appreciate it. I have to make sure I don't run over. So I'm starting my stopwatch, my
Miss
timer.
Octavia, what part of the UK were you raised in?
I was raised in the Midlands. Has anyone been to England? Yay! Yay, okay. Right in the middle of the country.
Okay.
Born in Nottingham, raised in Birmingham.
So what you're going to do is use your American voice. Speak as loudly as you can.
Okay, let me know if you can't hear me. I do. Can you all hear me? Yeah. You can all hear me? Okay.
I want to make sure they're not missing anything.
Wonderful, thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi. So I'm Octavia Goredema, and...
Wait, 1 second. Okay, keep going.
Oh, start over? Okay, rewind. I'm Octavia Goredema, and I'm a career coach and the founder of a platform called 2010 Talent. And I'm here today because someone recommended me kindly to Glenda. So thank you, Glenda and team, for finding me and inviting me to be here with you all today. I'm really proud to be here. For those of you who have one of these, you may have seen that we have bios in here, and thank you so much for those. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done in my bio, but I also wanted to talk to you about what goes behind a bio and what goes into building your career. And it's not all a linear process where you graduate and you've got everything figured out and you start knocking it out of the park. It doesn't always go like that. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about some of the things that aren't necessarily in my bio. So first of all, I'm almost 40. She's kind of hard. Comes really quick. And I'm not that cool with it, but it's happening, so I put it up there. I'm an Aries. Anyone else an Aries? Yay, hello. Okay, we're going to talk later. I'm an Aries. Those of you who are or may know an Aries know what that means. I'm a bit bossy. I was raised by a single mother, and I'm a mother myself. I have 2 gorgeous daughters. One's the same age as Bailey, back there. She's in 3rd grade. And my youngest is a 1st grader. As you heard, I'm not from here. I'm from England. I'm an immigrant. I moved to the United States in 2005, but I'm actually an immigrant twice over. I was born in England, in Nottingham, but my mother wasn't. She was born in Zimbabwe, in southern Africa. But then it was Rhodesia, before it was Zimbabwe. And she ended up in England because she got expelled from school when she was 17. Not because she wasn't smart enough, she just had too much to say, I think, and she got expelled. Her mama died when she was 4 in childbirth, and her father, my mom's dad, ran a farm, and he was really mad that she got expelled. And so my mom's older brother and older sister had already gone to England from Harare, and her big brother sent for her and paid for her plane ticket. She went to England and she started studying to become a nurse. Not long after she arrived, her dad was murdered. There was a civil war going on that was making Rhodesia Zimbabwe, and he was shot dead on his farm. And shortly after, she became pregnant unexpectedly with me. So that was my beginning. When I was about 4 years old, my mom started teaching me Shona. Shona is one of the languages in Zimbabwe. There's Ndebele and there's Shona. She wasn't teaching me Shona because she felt I needed to know her tongue. She was teaching me because we were about to be deported. She was about to be sent back, and even though I was born in England, I was going to have to go with her. My mom wrote a lot of letters, and it ended up that her member of parliament intervened, and through the grace of someone else, we were able to stay. And so I was educated in England, all through elementary and high school, and I went to university in England. I'm a politics and history graduate. I'll tell you more about that later. I'm now a career coach, and my focus is on helping Black women accelerate and achieve their career dreams. I'm a writer. I write for my platform, 2010talent.com, and I also write for other publications like Black Enterprise and the Guardian newspaper in the UK and other companies. I'm a board trustee I now sit on 2 boards. I built my professional career in public relations for 18 years. Started in London and then moved to Los Angeles. And I have a title from the Queen. It's not something I talk about that often, but I wanted to share that with you. There are different ranks of title in the United Kingdom, and twice a year the Queen gives them to certain individuals, and it goes from Sir and Dame and Commander of the Order of the British Empire. And I got a phone call from the Prime Minister's office to tell me, or ask me if I'd accept being made a member of the Order of the British Empire. And it was for the work that I do to empower black women in business. But that moment that I had at Buckingham Palace with Prince Charles, there really was a full circle moment from 25 years prior, almost being deported, to standing there and receiving that, and it's a lifetime honour. And so where you start isn't necessarily where you'll end up. So remember that. You never know where you're going to end up. So to tell you a little bit more about what I do now, 2010 Talent is dedicated to helping black women accelerate their careers. I provide one-to-one career coaching. I'm currently working with women in Los Angeles, where I live, the Bay Area, DC, and also Accra in Ghana. So a really broad spread of women that I coach. We publish career advice. You can see some examples here and resources on the website. And I interview women who are blazing a trail in their professions. I think over the past 8 years, I've interviewed over 150 women. And all of you who are mentors in here, please come find me. I'd love to know about your journeys and interview you too. Why do I do this? Well, as some of you may already know, we are the most underrepresented group in the corporate pipeline. Black women represent just 1.5% of senior level positions in corporate America. 1.5%. We earn on average 63 cents on the dollar compared to white men. And that's been estimated it's going to take us about 106 years to get pay parity. Oh, you need me to talk louder? Yes. It's going to take us about 106 years to earn the same. And that's just not acceptable. It really isn't. So the work that I do is about helping black women accelerate, learn how to negotiate their salaries, how to position themselves for promotion, and how to move forward. My work began in the year 2010 in England with a circle of women. I think Jacqueline talked this morning about What's Your Circle. It's really powerful. Watch Your Circle. It really makes an impact. And we started doing work with elementary school students and high school students and college students. I'm really proud to be here today, and earlier this year I was at the University of Oxford in England. Out of the blue, the university reached out to me and asked me if I'd be an ambassador for a gender equality program they were launching for 2018, and I said yes. And then I went to the university earlier this year. I'm actually featured in an exhibition that's running for the whole year in Oxford at the university called Women Who Dared. And I spoke at their International Women's Day panel event. My mom came with me. We were the only black women in the room, the two of us. But it was great to be there. I work with corporations, including Chevrolet, the Academy of Motion Picture Science and Arts, Major League Baseball, and you can see some of my work from earlier this year. I worked with Megabus. They hired me to be their national career coach spokesperson. And so I traveled the country with them and coached some of their clients and did some TV appearances as well. But this is the epicenter, really, of the work that I do, our media platform. If you go to 2010talent.com, you'll find career advice, resources, interview tips, how to build your resume. Our content has been shared by the White House, the previous administration, but by the White House, and also the United Nations as well. And I wanted to create something specifically for you. I hope I get a chance to talk to as many of you as possible over the rest of the weekend, but just in case I don't, if you go to 2010talent.com, SAGSAW, there's a page there for you with my contact details, and you can join our community and receive our weekly newsletter, and also discount codes on career coaching if that would be useful for you or anyone in your circle. So that's what I do now, but how did I get there? And like I said at the beginning, it wasn't a straight road. Oh boy, no. It was not. So I wanted to share, before we go into an exercise that we'll do together, some of the fears, doubts, and barriers I've faced on my career journey, which so far has taken me to this city, Los Angeles. So I wanted to share these photographs here. That's me on the left at school with some of my friends. I was in what you would call 10th grade. And that's me further on the right when I graduated from university, my politics and history degree from the University of Leicester. Now, I've put these two pictures side by side because if you told Octavia there on the left that she'd be doing that further on the right, I would not have believed you, not for 1 second. Octavia here on the left didn't think she was smart enough to go to college. She didn't believe in herself. She was petrified of what that meant and what that would be. And she was so afraid that when the time came to do her college application, she didn't even apply. And all of her friends did, and her mom was furious. My mother was so mad. After everything she'd been through, her one hope was that her daughter, who was smart enough, would go straight on to college. But I didn't believe I was good enough to do so. And so I didn't apply at first. And then after a couple of months, I came to my senses, thank goodness, but it was past the initial deadline. But I thought, okay, I'll apply anyway. And I got offers, and I got my grades, and I went to my first choice college, which was the University of Leicester, and it ended up being the best experience. I thrived, I loved every second of it. And to bring it full circle, one of the boards I now sit on is for that university. So I could never have seen that back then. Every milestone that I've made, I'll talk you through some of them, I've overcome fear or doubts or a barrier to it. There was my time at my university, which is there. I actually found my first career job in public relations before I graduated, which sounds great, but the truth was I always wanted to be a writer. I wasn't sure if it was going to be novels or if it was going to be journalism, but I always wanted to be a writer. But I didn't think I was good enough, and I went to see a career advisor at my university my first year, and I said, you know, I want to be a writer, but I don't think I'm good enough. What do you think I should do? And he goes, have you thought of public relations? Never heard of public relations before then, but he suggested it. I went into it. As Jacqueline said, I can't see her now, she said it this morning as well. You don't need permission to do what you want to do, but here I was at 19 years old looking for permission from someone who didn't know me, had never met me before, and that ended up shaping my career. I went into public relations, like, full blown. I got a job in London. I didn't want to accept that job after it was offered to me because I was scared of moving to London. I was scared of how expensive it was and what would it really be like, and I didn't know anybody. And then luckily, one of my oldest friends just said, just go, just try, just see what it's like. And so I did. From there, I worked at a couple of PR firms, and one of them was bought by the largest PR firm in the world, Edelman. They have 46 or maybe now 48 offices around the world. And I wanted to move to Los Angeles to be with the man who's now my husband. And so he suggested to me, why don't you ask for a transfer? And I was like, I can't do that. They just bought my company. That won't happen. Well, guess what? I asked, and it did happen. And so I transferred to Los Angeles, and the building in that picture there was the office that I worked in. I arrived in Los Angeles at the age of 26. I had my own office with my name on the door. First time I've ever had that. And it sounds like it's great. It was actually awful because I didn't know anybody. And nobody came and talked to me because I had my own office and the door was closed. And I was managing a team, one of whom really wasn't thrilled to have me as her new boss. I was the most senior black woman at that firm of about 120, and I was only 26, but I was the most senior. My boss was in Seattle. It was a really difficult time. And also, for those of you who may work in PR, I didn't have any contacts. I didn't have any media contacts. I just moved 3,000 miles. So it was a really difficult time for me. But I didn't want to quit. And so I kept working at it. And guess what? I was dreading my first performance review. I got promoted. A year later, I got promoted again. So it was hard. But I worked really hard. And then I started my 2010 work in the year 2010. Again, if you'd have told me that beforehand, that I'd be standing here before you all now, I would never have believed it. So the thread that I wanted to bring together was that all throughout my career and my education journey, I never really fully believed in myself. Never. And if I could rewind and go back, oh my, I would change so many things, but I can't. But I'm here, and I'm here with you now. And you are all here, and you have all of these opportunities and all these resources. And if there's one thing I could say to Octavia back then, and that I want to say to you now, it's pretty much this. If you believe in yourself, you can move mountains. Self-belief really is the secret sauce to everything, and you have a choice over how you respond to any situation. And your career journey is also yours and yours alone to navigate. Now that all sounds good, right? But in reality, it's really hard. It's really hard, and it can be really, really lonely. So what do you do when you've got fears and doubts and barriers, and you really don't know how to move past those? And so I really wanted to do this exercise with you all, and I'm going to show you what I did, and then I'm going to pass out these sheets here, which you can complete as well. So yesterday, I was watching you all create your vision boards, and like my mouth was on the floor. I did that for the first time 10 years ago, and then for a long time I was too scared to look at it. But vision boards are really, really powerful. And we all want to live our vision board life. So the first thing I want you to do is to think about the vision boards that you created yesterday, or the ideas and goals that you already have, and start to jot down what some of your career dreams are. And to make it a little easier, I've shared some of mine. So these are some of the dreams that I have at the moment. I'd love to have a scholarship fund. I'd love to write a book that's actually published. The actually published part is really important because I did have a book deal before it went sideways. We'll talk about that another time. I'd love to have an international office, and I'd love to have an internship program. Those are just some of the goals that I have. So that's the good stuff. But then what I want you to do next, and on the reverse of the sheet, is this. And it looks like this. And I want you to get real. I want you to think about what is holding you back. Oh, thank you. Let me pass these out. What is holding you back? This is actually based on a concept by Dr. Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the concept is called circles of influence and circles of concern. Now, just because I'm 40 almost and a career coach doesn't mean that I'm fearless. Far from it. It's human nature to be afraid, especially when your career dream really matters to you. And especially when you've never done this before, and especially when there seems to be so many things that could get in the way of that. So what I'd like you to do is to write down some of those fears and doubts and barriers on the outside of the circle. And these ones are mine. So for those things that I want to accomplish, some of the things that I feel are standing between that are, first of all, what if I fail? Or I don't know where to start, or I don't know the right people, or I'm not good enough or smart enough to do it. I don't have enough time, or I'm not as successful as other people who are already doing this. Now, these are all big things, and they're not necessarily things that I can change overnight, but the fact is, if you stay focused on these things, and if I stay focused on these things, I'm not going to move forward. There isn't going to be someone who's going to come and give me permission to move forward. I have to make that happen myself. So I have to change my focus. And so what I want you to do after you've started to jot down these things is look at what you have and think, what's the biggest thing here that I've written? For me, it's what if I fail, definitely. What if I fail? That's the biggest one. And then once you've done that, I want you to fill the center circle, and this is going to be your circle of power. This is going to be what you do to help eliminate gradually that biggie, that really big fear or barrier that you have. For me, these are some of the things that I decided I needed to do. And the number one thing that would help me get over the feeling of what if I fail is if I believe in myself. Well, what does that mean? Well, I need to change how I think. I need to remember things that I've done well. That's a big one. It's easy to move through life and because you're looking to reach for the next thing and forget what got you to where you're standing right now. And it might not even seem like that thing was really significant until there's someone behind you who's looking to get where you are. I work with a coach, even though I'm a coach, and before we have each session, I think about, well, what have I accomplished since the last time I spoke to Aurora? And it's really a powerful thing because you forget. You forget. So remember the things that you've done well, because those are the proof points that you're going to continue to succeed in your future. And ask for help. You are surrounded by some badass women who are doing all sorts of things. So you're already making that step in terms of asking for help. But don't be afraid to ask for help as you're continuing your journey. So these are just my examples of things that I need to do. Yours will be very personal to you, but I wanted to give you time to think through those, think through what could be in your circle of power. So thank you all.
Good afternoon. I'm so happy to see so many of you. I've seen so many of you last year. I'm like, yay, they invited me back. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the gift of gab. What I really want to make sure I do is give you something that you can walk away with and use later. So you can say, okay, kind of how Octavia did, give you something that you can think about and chew on and say, okay, this is going to be helpful for me later, okay? So I'm going to try to walk. No, leave the lights on. I don't have a video. Yeah. Oh, are you overwhelmed with light? Okay. Hold on, let me make sure I know what I'm doing. So you saw my introduction. What did you notice that I said in the introduction? What were some things you definitely heard? That I was excited. What else? Build new relationships. What else? What did I say that you had to know? If you didn't know me, what's really important? My name. What else? Did I tell you what I did? I told you what I did. Who remembers what I do? Boutique something. Y'all thinking about shopping. What else? What? Consulting business, right. Boutique consulting business. So I'm a diversity and inclusion consultant. We all know what diversity and inclusion is, right? We should with all these black facts, right? Okay, good. Okay. So I told you who I was, I told you what I did, and then I told you what else? That I was excited to be here, that I wanted to come share, that I wanted to give you some tools, some tips, and some tricks, okay? That is kind of the beginning of having the gift of gab. So just to give you a little bit of background about why this is important. You see this picture of me in the middle, and I'm kind of by myself. And when you get to know people, you build connections. The way you start that is having something to give to people. You think about, as you meet someone, a lot of times we're led to believe that you're supposed to walk up to them and say, hey, I really want to be a teacher, and you're a teacher, can you help me? Or hey, I really, really want to be a coach or a singer. But a lot of times does that help when people come to you like that? Hey, I really want to, and you're like, that's nice. I don't know how to help you with that. But if someone comes to you and says, hey, I noticed you're a teacher. I really think I might be able to help you by sharing this idea. I really might have a resource that could work well for you. Maybe we can partner. Maybe we can work together. That's a little easier to get behind, right? Feels like they're supporting you, right? So think about your connections that way. When I thought about what I wanted to give you today, I thought about what was difficult for me when I was in college, when I was in high school. And for me, it was, how do I get connected? How do I meet people? And it's important because that's how you get different places. All these lines and dots and pillars are just kind of showing you that I built relationships along the way. And the way I did that was using a few tactics. The first one being greeting. Do we all know how to greet one another? You know how to introduce yourself to someone. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in detail in just a moment. I'm going to give you an activity. You can use your phones, pull out your phone and do it. But the first thing I want to talk about is greeting. So when you greet somebody, the first thing you want to do is introduce yourself. Remember we talked about in the beginning when I talked, I said, hello, my name is Amber Cabral. I am a diversity and inclusion consultant with the boutique consulting firm. Thinking about how you say those things, say them slowly, say them clearly, so that the person you're speaking to can retain that information, okay? Then you want to invite someone else to introduce themselves, all right? The second step about having gab, having the gift of gab, is actively listening. What did I do? I asked you, what did you hear, right? A lot of you were like, So Something about a boutique, because y'all like to shop. I see all these nice handbags. But you heard some things, right? There was something in there. Actively listening helps you keep that information in. Listen to what people say about themselves. Listen to what they tell you they do. Listen to what they say they're interested in or how they're contributing. Because that also gives you the tool to be able to do the third thing, which is be curious. What does that mean, you're a diversity and inclusion consultant? What is inclusion? What do you mean you support organizations? What do you mean you support Fortune 500 companies? What does that mean? How do I get more information? Being curious is one of the best ways to connect with people. You ever been in a situation where you're having a conversation with someone and they don't ask you anything about you? And they go and go and go and go, and you're waiting to jump in, but they never really say, so tell me about you, right? That's what being curious gives you. When someone's speaking, you get to ask them questions. They tell you about themselves. They're in turn going to return that and say, oh, well, tell me a little bit about you. That was an interesting question. So between actively listening, where you get those nuggets, those things you can learn to ask about, what is it that you said you did again? Tell me more about that. And then also being curious, you also get to build a connection. You remember people when they have an engaging conversation, right? You remember people when they tell you something you haven't heard before and you actually ask them something about it. You remember the dialogue. So I want to make sure you keep those three things in mind. If you're thinking about GAB, building connections, connections are critical. And I'll talk a little bit about why closer to the end, but I want to make sure we get to the activity. Connections are critical though. First thing is what? Greeting. Second thing is what? Actively listen. What does actively listen mean? Paying attention. Say more about that. How can you show that? Body language, right? Nodding. What else can you say? Mm-hmm. Oh, I understand that, right? Exactly. The third one is be curious. What does be curious mean? How can you be curious? Asking questions. That's right. So you have to pay attention so you know what to ask, right? All right, so we're going to do an activity. You can do it on your phone. I'm going to put the directions up here. What I would like is for the mentors to be the listeners. What I want you to listen for is, do you really understand? See, I know you know these mentees, but do you really understand what they told you? Would a stranger understand it? Would it be useful as an introduction? Okay? And then I want everyone else in the group, the other participants, to actually do the exercise. Now, this is little, but I wanted to give you as much as I could. So I'm going to read it to you because I know everybody's eyes might be struggling like mine were. So the first step is tell who you are. So I have a blank line here. It says, my name is blank. I am a blank year student at blank school. I am majoring in, if you're in college. If you're not, you can say I am interested in studying, for example. So the line I have here would be what I would say. My name is Amber Cabral. I am the founder and principal consultant for Cabral Co., a boutique inclusion and diversity consulting firm. Okay, so that's the first part. The second part is explain what you do or what you're responsible for. So that could be I teach, it could be I work with. If you are not quite at the point where you have a career or a job or an interest, it could be I am interested in. Okay, I would like to learn more about. All right, so talk about that stuff. And then the last one is think about what contributions you'd like to make. What value do you add? So mine would say I'm focused on creating a world where everyone experiences inclusion and feels welcome, comfortable, and safe. That matters to me. I want people to feel like they belong in a space. What matters to you? What's that thing that you're like, this is why I do what I do? So I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Pull your phone out, pull your pens out, whatever it is, and write your 30-second. You should be able to say it in 30 seconds. And I'm going to pick some of you to do it, too. 30-second elevator pitch. Oh, you're confident. You're not going to bring your sheet or nothing, huh? Okay. Yes. Okay. We would like to hear, what was your name?
Alexis Hardiman.
Okay, we're going to listen to Alexis's pitch. I want you to listen, and I want you to think about some things she's done really well, and that she can do better. So listen to Alexis's pitch. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexis Hardiman. I am a sophomore biology major, minoring in public health from Seattle, Washington. After I graduate here from Parkland University, I will be going to medical school to get a degree or my MD in dermatology. With going into dermatology, I believe that the skin is the largest organ of your body and everyone should feel comfortable in it. So with that being said, I aspire to go into treating women of African American descent as well as men to alleviate the issues that they have when coming into skin issues.
That was great feedback. All right. You can read it if you want to read it.
Okay.
You might not know it by heart yet.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
I am Jessica Tint. I attend Towers High School as a senior. My ambitions is to major in theater and mass media arts at Clark Atlanta University. I currently do poetry here, and I am the president of SGA. My long-term goals are to amend the world with my gifts through cinema and fellowship that will affect youth mindsets and plant inspirations to all people.
All right. Good job. Was this useful? So I have a worksheet. I was going to print it out and give it to you, but you know, life, flying from other countries is difficult. Sometimes you don't have a printer. So I will make sure that I'll make sure you get it. If you can make sure everyone gets it or something, that would be great. But it's just kind of a worksheet similar to this with a few more examples so that you can go back and write it again. So as you go through school, as you find new interests, as you get a new job, whatever happens, I try to always have a pitch. Because people will walk up to you and say, so what do you do? And your first thought is, even though you know what you do, you know better than anybody else what you do. But you want to say it in a meaningful and impactful way because that person could be your next connection. Now, to talk a little bit about why that's important, I have a few points of note that I just want to make sure you walk away with. The first is, and if you want, you can take a picture of this because I know sometimes people are like, I want to write all this down, whatever. So first is give over get. Again, like I said at the beginning, we often think about networking. You hear networking and you're like, oh, I got to give everybody a business card, or I have to give everybody my name, or I have to tell everybody what I do. Think about what you can contribute. If you approach things with an open hand and think about what you can give, people are more interested in how they can partner with you, okay? So think about that. Opportunities are everywhere, so just keep that in mind. You may be able to offer something to someone and they'll come back around and say, oh, you know what? I remember that she shared this and I may be able to use her for this thing, creating an opportunity you didn't even know existed, okay? The second one is follow instructions. Follow instructions. Following instructions sometimes is difficult because you get them all the time. And so you feel like, I've seen this before. I know what to do. I know how to fill this out. I already know how to react to it. Follow instructions. People take the time to write instructions for a reason. You can miss one small thing and eliminate yourself from a pool of opportunity. Follow instructions. Read them. Take the time. Think about what is being asked. And even if it seems like there's another way, or there seems like there's an improvement that can be made, still follow the instructions. Maybe you can come back to the person later and say, hey, this may be a better way to do this. I had an idea, but always make sure you look at and follow instructions so you don't count yourself out accidentally, okay? Then the third thing is follow up. You meet someone, you meet me out on the street somewhere, we have a conversation. You tell me who you are. I say, oh, that's so interesting. You know, I'm really interested in having an intern. I give you my card, and then I never hear from you again. What's wrong with this? What happened? Missed opportunity, right? Follow up. Here's the thing about following up. You have an elevator pitch now. You know what to say. You know exactly what to say. You know how to say who you are. You know how to say what you're interested in. You know how to say what school you went to, what you want to do in the world. And you also have something additional. If you've met me in person, you can say, I met you at, we talked about. Now that makes someone more inclined to say, oh, I remember you. Let me circle back. This is how people get jobs. People get jobs because they remembered someone they met at a coffee shop. You know, I met you at a coffee shop, you had a red umbrella, and you were on your way out, and I helped you with the door. Oh, I do remember her. Let me call her back. People do not feel the same sense of obligation to strangers. So make sure you take advantage of those opportunities. Remember that active listening, the A in GAP, active listening. You will notice and observe and hear things that when you do your follow-up will help you and you won't even know it. Okay, so keep that in mind. The last thing is, what got you here won't get you there. Always be evolving. This is why it's really important to be curious and ask questions and think about ways that you can insert yourself that may not be a way you've done before. So if you're not normally the person that's like, "Ooh, pick me, let me come up and speak," maybe you should be that person. Creates opportunities you don't know existed, okay? Look for opportunities to insert yourself in a way that's different than you have in the past, okay? So thinking about your current skill set and what you do now, you're probably very comfortable, right? You're comfortable with whatever you're doing. If you go to school, you're comfortable with school. If you drive around, you say you go somewhere every day. If you go to school every day, do you take the same path every day? If you stop and get coffee every day, do you go to the same coffee shop? Okay, do you go to the same laundromat or potentially dry cleaners? Same thing all the time, right? You could change that up and encounter somebody completely different. What got you here won't get you there. Always think about that. Always think about opportunities for you to evolve. I went from high school directly to college, directly to grad school. When I started college, I thought I wanted to do psychology. Then I thought I wanted to do child psychology. Then I got halfway through college and realized I really hate psychology. I also realized I didn't want to give people meds. And part of being a psychologist is to give people meds, and I didn't want that responsibility. At some point, I realized I was very interested in sociology, but then I also realized I wasn't going to make any money doing that. So I said, oh, okay, I'll have to go to grad school. I don't know exactly for what. I encountered someone that was in a graduate program that sounded very interesting to me. It was a business program, but it wasn't a business school. And it had organizational leadership is what my degree ultimately was for grad school. I knew I wanted to teach people, but I didn't want to teach little kids necessarily. And I didn't necessarily want to be in a classroom or professor setting. I wanted to be helpful in terms of, I know these things about life and I've had these experiences, and I want to be able to insert those into spaces where they're useful and not necessarily in a technical classroom kind of way. I didn't know that was called a consultant. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. Went through graduate school, came out, worked several jobs. I worked in healthcare. I worked in marketing. I ultimately ended up at Walmart, which was the last job I had. I evolved through Walmart from being over a mentoring program to being over interns, which I loved because you get to go to all the campuses and see all the young people and how excited they are about work. And then the last thing I ultimately did is I had a diversity and inclusion strategy, which I realized once I got the job, I had been doing that all along. So ultimately, I decided to step out and start my own firm so that I could do more of what I really enjoyed, because when you stay in an organization, often your career takes turns that are kind of out of your control, and I wanted to be in a little bit more control. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay, so they told me I have a minute, so thank you for your time.